My partner and I fight a lot. Is it abuse? Sometimes it can be difficult to pinpoint where fighting ends and abuse begins. We're socialized to think that arguing in relationships is normal. Side note, that's debatable. But the point is, most of us have felt jealous, said things we regret, yelled when we shouldn't have. In a healthy relationship, both partners have power. Now, of course, the power may fluctuate depending on the topic and the situation, but essentially it's reasonably distributed between the two. Outsiders might even see violence and think that it's mutual. Outsiders can be defined as friends, family, or the police. Assuming that violence is mutual is a dangerous mistake. When there's a power imbalance, the victim is always at a disadvantage. Perpetrators will often make it look like they're the ones being abused. So all that to say, how can you tell if it's just fighting or abuse? Relationship conflict becomes domestic abuse when one partner uses violent, threatening, or coercive behavior to gain power over the other person. Another test is, do you feel afraid of your partner? That said, fear is not always a reliable way to measure that. Victims often start off feeling anxious and confused. The fear really builds over time, sometimes even imperceptibly. The reality is, little about domestic abuse is straightforward or simple. An abuser starts off by building love and trust. They're establishing dependency. Once this is established, they switch. Now you're moving into gaslighting and devaluation. And it often isn't just an immediate switch. There's a transition, and now you're seeing both. Sometimes they're horrible to you, but you still see the good person that you once fell in love with. But an abuser will try to draw you away from the real world and accept their perception of reality. They start making demands, they test your boundaries, they alternate punishment and reward. Victims at this point will often feel stuck, trapped, guilty, ashamed, but also like they love the abuser. By the time the victim realizes the threat that they're facing, they may have no choice but to stay. It might feel impossible, or it's simply become too dangerous to leave. Leaving is the most dangerous time for a victim of abuse. The abuser is about to lose the thing that they value the most. No, not you. Power and control. So what we're talking about here is the difference between calling your partner a name when you're angry, or are you being degraded? This isn't about calling names. An abuser is trying to convince the victim that they are worthless, stupid, and unlovable. And after a while, victims start to believe it. And that keeps victims in the cycle. Educate yourself on abuse tactics, and trauma bonds. You can learn how to break free from these pathological relationships. Work with a therapist, a coach, or contact a domestic violence hotline.